You're listening to Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
This morning, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I contemplated my life as a kayaker.
Jesus Christ.
The river is like a lifeblood that connects my being to nature. I never feel more alive as when
never really stops with you guys, does it?
we need like a slow motion, like waterfall. Guy dropped a waterfall.
All right. What issue is this? Is this 19?
I'd find that hard to believe.
18. I think it's 18.
No, it's 19. 18 was last episode, wasn't it?
19.
Jeez. I can't believe it.
All right. Welcome to Hammer Factor 18, the We're Out of Ideas edition. Is that what we were going to call it? From your email there?
I think when you do a viewer mail episode, that's like a flag for people. You know what I mean? I just wanted to call it out ahead of time.
Next episode's going to be greatest hits.
Right. It'd be like an eponymous the Hammer Factor episode.
On the horn today, we have whitewater legend, owner of Immersion Research, and all-around good guy, John Weld. How are you doing?
I'm good, and we're going to have a refrain of this good guy thing because evidently there's people that disagree with this, but go ahead.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, introduce Lewis first.
Okay.
We can't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also on the horn, Policy Council, North Fork champion, poker maverick, Lewis Geltman. How's it going, Lewis?
Real good.
So, John, fill us in.
Yeah, okay. All right. So my buddy and previous employee, Andrew Miller, he works for Confluence, schlepping boats around. He's driving to some event, and he had some little team guy with him, a team athlete, to help. And Miller was like, have you heard this Hammer Factor show? And this athlete person, and I don't know the guy's name, but he knows who he is. He's out there. The guy was like, no, I haven't heard it. And so Miller plays the episode at the end. The guy goes, that John Weld guy sounds like a dick. So I got to throw this out. Is that my role on this show? I'm that guy?
Well, you have a unique style. I mean, I don't know if you're that guy.
Oh, yes, that's a yes. That's a hard yes.
Oh, man.
All right.
When I was younger and had not reached my self-assured middle age, I always felt like hanging out with you was a good time because you would just rip on everyone incessantly, and the price you had to pay for that was like when your turn came to be ripped on. It's like, I'll just put up John yelling at me for a while because most of the time ripping on other people and it'll be funny.
I just want to spend this episode talking about me and my shortcomings. We could really get into it. Okay, so I'm glad you said that because in a minute we're going to talk about one of our favorite subjects, whitewater SUP, and today I'm not going to take the lead on this discussion because Lewis has some very strong feelings about this and he's ready to say something.
Okay.
Should we wait on that for a minute?
We're not there yet.
All right.
I think you built that up a little bit too much. But
Settle down, Hot Rod.
See, we get on before the show. Everyone's talking like they mean business. As soon as we get on air, everyone's nice.
That is so true.
Except for me, evidently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was also accused of being too diplomatic on the podcast recently.
You can't win.
See, it's a balance. It's a balance. See, Lewis, you're super nice. Weld, you're a dick. I'm somewhere in the middle. Okay, where do we go? Where do we go from this? Okay.
Before we leave, I want to say to anyone out there, if you say something bad about me, I find out sooner or later. Just so you know.
I think that.
Just FYI. It's a small community, and I'm in the hub of a lot of gossip.
All right, there we go. So
gossip is best here.
So let's throw this one to you. some headline I saw about mountain biking in Maine and invasive species, diseases. Mountain bikers are diseased. What's the story here?
It's Montana.
Montana.
Yeah, Montana, and I think it was actually road bikers, who everybody hates, of course.
Okay, well, then never mind. Let's move on.
Well, yeah, right. That's my day.
There's nothing to discuss.
An email from John Grace saying, "Lewis, what are you doing about this?" It was an Outside Magazine article about some piece of legislation in Montana proposing to charge out-of-state bikers a $25 fee that would go towards the state's invasive species tagging program. And so, of course, getting that email from John Grace, I looked into it, and apparently it's just some state legislator in Montana who's a dick and just hates bikers. Yeah, well disappointing to himself right now.
There were all kinds of quotes in the article about basically it touched at the very end about the invasive species, and the whole article was about basically this guy cutting on road bikers.
Yeah, but this thing has some legs. I mean, this wasn't just a joke. I mean, this thing actually.
Yeah.
No, it was.
It sounded like it made some progress. I just got an email I got somebody to reach out to some folks in Montana about it, and it sounds like the legislation died. Thankfully. This guy is kind of notorious for being a dick about bikers, and the mountain bikers are trying to organize to run someone against him next election, which we'll look forward to.
We'll have to cover that. So
how about our boy?
Don't cross us.
Dan West.
Dan West. Yeah.
It may be the Dan West.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's the man for the job.
Right.
Anything else? Sorry to throw that one on your lap, Lewis. Anything else in the Outdoor Alliance world? Policy, rubbing elbows in DC we need to talk about?
What's this Jerry Brown Eagle Mountain hydropower? Does that have any particular significance? You familiar with this?
I'm not.
What's
Jerry
that?
Brown's reaching out to Trump to build a gigantic hydro project. It's sort of a weird, water holding pen in the middle of California.
What drainage?
Right. Grace, you sent me the link to this.
I did?
Yeah, you.
Oh, man. I've been on a lot of painkillers lately since I broke my ribs, so.
Huh. You should move to West Virginia.
It may have slipped my mind.
I don't know. I'll let you back.
All right, well, this is
sorry.
All right. Well, maybe we should get better informed of this and regroup next week on this if there's any.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. All right, so being this is our viewer mail edition, I think we should go into some viewer mail. You guys down?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's start off with a simple one here. This one, or maybe it's not simple, but I'm going to throw this to Mr. Weld. This is from Christopher O'Brien. Huge thanks for the viewer mail. I love reading these. What are the benefits of a dry deck, and does IR still produce these by request?
Yes, we do. You just have to give us a shout, and we'll make it happen for you. I think it's $70 to put together a dry deck. If you have a jacket and a skirt, of course, IR branded. If it's not IR branded, it's a little bit more. Not because we're jerks, but because we don't have the tooling necessarily set up to do non-IR branded stuff. Benefits, I don't know. They're really nice, man. Dry decks are the way. If you have the means and you don't mind risking getting a skirt attached to a jacket that you're going to be, that's going to be kind of set up for one boat or one size cockpit, it's great because you can slide right into these things, and it reduces a tremendous amount of bulk on the torso. It's a luxury item for sure. They're not cheap, but they're great.
What about
I don't know, Lewis. We've made you a bunch of dry decks. What do you think of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the dry deck is ubiquitous in slalom. Like you never see anybody ever wearing a two-piece dry top or a paddle jacket and spray skirt. Everything is attached, and I got used to that growing up. And I think I've maybe owned one dry top ever that wasn't attached to a spray skirt.
Yeah.
it's drier. It's super comfortable. Like, it's not anything constricting around your waist.
What about the safety concerns of something like that?
I think there's a theoretical concern that if you get pinned with something holding your skirt against your belt, like you're stuck under a tree or a tree's caught on your tree branch caught on your skirt, you can't pull out of you can't slide out of the tunnel like you can with a two-piece arrangement. I suppose being in the position we're in making these things, I can't say that could never happen, but it seems unlikely. I guess you should use caution creaking in these things. I don't think that'd be the smartest creaking, setup.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit dangerous, but that's all I've ever used my entire kayaking career, and I'm still alive, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, one thing about dry decks is we do make, when people are confused about this, when we do make a dry deck, you have to make the tunnel of the skirt pretty big because you have to be able to pull it over your shoulders. And then you also have to be able to attach the jacket to it without a bunch of wrinkles. And a jacket opening to get over your shoulders has to be about, if you're a size large, about 45 inches in circumference. And so the skirt tunnel has to be big. People are always wondering why the skirt tunnel can't be as tight as it is normally, but you can't do that because it would be a leaky mess where you attach the skirt to the jacket. So if you do get a dry deck, be prepared for that.
But you can get away with a little bigger waist because it's sealed up.
I think it's good because it's, like I said, it slips over your head really easily, and then it also frees your torso up. It's just a lot less constricting. The rotation is a lot easier. I think it's better that way.
Yeah, highly recommended.
All right, there you go, Christopher. The benefits outweigh the negatives, and yes, IR still does make these. All right, this one, this is from Michael Gallimore. How can regional ambassadors of the sport do more to keep the interest in their sport alive? I'm from West Virginia, and in 2007-ish, I was very lucky to buy the movie River Sense, and learning about B.J. Johnson and William Neely had a pretty big impact on my interest in paddling. Also, whitewater films on the Yacht New and Golly. Chris, I've never heard of this. Chris Preparato's whitewater film series of the Yacht New Golly has been a gem that needs to be preserved.
Yeah, that guy Chris Preparato made these kind of like history of paddling in the Mid-Atlantic movies, and he had I saw a really cool one he did with Tom McEwen talking about kind of the early days in the Upper Yacht when there were landowners with guns trying to fight people off from putting on the river, and he just did a really nice job of kind of interspersing. I don't know, it's hard to do those historic footage things when there's not necessarily any footage, or it was very Ken Burns, but awesome. They were really cool. I think maybe you just look for Chris Preparato on Vimeo or something. You can find them, but they're really good.
So I guess Michael's question here is how can he's a regional ambassador, he's passionate. What can he and others like him do more to keep the interest in the sport alive? His invested interest.
I'll tell you something that's going on here in Morgantown, which has been phenomenal. Is we have a local retailer here called Pathfinder. And just a couple of employees have taken it upon themselves to do free kayak classes during the summer, one night a week. And then during the winter, they also rent out space in the university pool here to do roll classes. And they do this for free. I think you have to pay to get into the pool. It's not Pathfinder that's charging this. But and then Karen and I volunteer when we have a chance. We've been teaching rolling and then going out and with them in the river. But we have 20 or 30 people is not uncommon at these events, and they've been doing it consistently for 2 or 3 years now. And it's really starting to reap benefits because I've never seen such an active paddling community in Morgantown, of beginner kayakers.
Cool.
I think a lot of I think are people interested for sure. They're just not quite sure where to start. And a swimming pool and a roll class is one of the best. And you get people from all skill levels show up to those things, as you guys know. People who just want to help out and get in the boat in the middle of winter.
Another thing I would suggest here to Michael is here in town, Adam Herzog puts on what he calls a beer league, and basically it's just one afternoon a week. It's on Monday nights where everybody gets together. They do a round of attainment. Sometimes they have a little race. Sometimes they don't. People swap boats. There's kids in the field playing. It's kind of turned into a family affair. So maybe kind of something like that could be a good option.
Yeah, that's cool. We do some similar stuff out here. We had a once a week race series in the summer on kind of the class 2 or class 3 sections here. it kind of devolved into like a happy hour float, but that's okay.
That's not a bad thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is, if you get someone who's passionate who shows up every single week for any prolonged period of time, it happens.
I think that's
It
the
just
key.
happens.
I think that's the key, is the commitment from somebody to make it repetitive, to be there week after week after week, and people jump on board.
Like this podcast.
Whenever we can get it done.
Week after, well, okay.
And we're going to be back on schedule after this one, so.
Okay.
All right, let's move on from that. So, Michael, I guess the answer to your question would be just start something repetitive. Get it going and keep it going. All right, let's do one more. We got one more viewer mail here in us. How long are we in here? We got time. All right.
I thought we were going to do like 4 hours of viewer mail.
Well,
You get hundreds of these things, right?
yeah, but we got a whole hit list of things that you want to talk about. We've got news. We've got to talk about whitewater SUP. We've got some talking about
All
Nori
right,
and Newman
okay.
on our expedition. So let's and we, you know what,
Maybe
we're
not out of good ideas yet.
gonna do viewer mail every week. So
Okay.
we're gonna.
All right.
Here's a good one that recently came in. This is from Tristan Campbell. Tristan says, you touched a bit on risk-taking last episode. I've been running the Green Narrows for about 2 years, but have yet to step up to the Big Three. Recently, I've been considering stepping up to the plate, but want to make sure I can process the fear in a manner that is constructive. Any advice?
Well, I
Yeah.
think for one, this will lead into our next topic, the style topic, because I think there's a thread here to follow into that conversation.
Okay.
But go ahead, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say, first of all, those 3 rapids on the green are like so much harder than anything else on the green, right? So it's like, I feel like that's not necessarily a great progression. Like, I feel like the thing would be to go somewhere else and run some harder rapids and then come back to the green and run. I don't know. What do you think about that, Grace? I mean, it just seems to me like Sunshine and Go Left and Gorilla are just like massively harder than the whole rest of the run. And so like just like running the green a bunch of times and then stepping up to those rapids might not be the ticket if the rest of that is kind of the hardest thing you've done before that.
Uh-huh. I think that it takes more than just making that decision. And for me, it's kind of maybe just taking a step in skill or conditioning, or just feeling strong because I've made a month-long commitment to getting in my boat every other day. It's not so much to me about when it comes to controlling your fear. It's not so much about controlling it versus just practicing enough where you just get an inherent confidence. So I think if you're looking to do that, to run those rapids, commit to, okay, I'm going to step it up and do 3 weeks where I do attainments 3 times a day. And then after that 3 weeks, all right, be like, now I'm going to really think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like the thing about being scared is, it's like when you're running something really hard and dangerous, you don't really want to feel super scared. Like, I feel like you should be feeling confident about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, I think that being afraid when you're, a beginner, intermediate paddler is healthy because, most of the time you should be kind of operating in an environment where the consequences are something that you can live with. Where, like if you swim at National in the Upper Yacht, it's like you can be scared about that because if you're uncertain and it doesn't work out, like it's going to be fine. Like it might be unpleasant, but like it's going to be fine. But by the time you're kind of running class 5, you need to know that you're going to make it. And so if you're scared at that point, I think having a little bit of nervousness is natural, but I think that you should have sort of built that base of experience of being able to say, well, right now I'm scared because, I'm just naturally nervous and it's okay, or I'm scared because I actually have a bad feeling and I need to kind of like listen to myself and step back from what I'm about to do because this isn't a good idea. Yeah. And I think kind of building that experience to be able to sort of discern why you're scared is important. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
McEwen, Tom McEwen, the guy who taught you to paddle, right? Lewis, were you around for that era, or was he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. McEwen used to say, because Tom McEwen, even to this day, runs really big whitewater. He would say if he was scared of getting hurt, that's what gave him pause to really think about whether he should be doing it or not. But if he was just scared because he was scared, he would usually try and push through that. And I think that's been reasonable advice, I think. And I think what that means is, and getting back to what you were saying earlier, is that, if you get to a point where, you're running enough whitewater beside the green and you get to the gorilla, you should be able to look at gorilla and say, this is a little nerve-wracking, but I feel I can do this without any kind of problem. It's going to be scary, but I can't see that getting in the way of me nailing this move. You know what I mean? I think at that point, that's the right time to run that rapid in any Class 5 rapid. I think and this is what I'm talking about with the style piece that we're gonna bring up here in a minute, was that a lot of times you see people who are bombing down whitewater who are obviously in over their heads, and they somehow survive it, with some horrible line, and they're bouncing off rocks, and they get to the bottom, and they're like pumping their fist in victory. I think that's a little bit of a sketchier situation, because I don't think those people they're not assessing fear the same way, because I think they're looking at it and they could get really badly hurt. They're doing it anyway.
It's like, that's what it is. It's like you need to kind of like objectively assess what's going on and be like, am I going to be able to make this line? And if I don't make this line, can I live with the consequences? And then if the answer to those questions is yes, and you're still scared, well, do it anyway. It's good for you.
Right.
But if the answer is no, and you're scared, then you're probably scared for a reason. You should not do what you're thinking about doing.
Yeah.
Right.
That magic balance is something that I think it brings. I don't know. It keeps kayaking spicy. It always brings you back to it. So
I mean, there's a lot of aspects of kayaking, but I think all three of us have enjoyed running Class 5 whitewater, and we do that because we like the challenge with consequence. Like a challenge under pressure. You know what I mean? And really hanging it out a little bit. So, I mean, it's a legitimate question. I personally expect to be scared. I think if you look at a really hard piece of whitewater and you're not scared, there's probably something wrong with you. And I do see people who look at really big whitewater and aren't that scared. I think there's something kind of wrong with them. I wish sometimes, and I feel that way about McEwen. In fact, I feel like he would look at some things and I'd be like, you should really have second thoughts about this. But he didn't really assess fear that same way, and it was extremely nerve-wracking. It has been extremely nerve-wracking at times,
Mm-hmm. Different perspective. So this is going to be my answer to Tristan. Enjoy it. This is a game you're going to play forever.
All right.
Try and be as confident and practice as much as you can, and if it feels right, lay it out. If you think you're going to get hurt, wait till the next time.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right. Thanks for the viewer mail, guys. That was fun. We got a bunch more, and we'll get to them at a later date. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on here. All right. So let's touch on the smalls to the walls race. Let's kind of actually, you know what? Let's keep going with the fear and the style. And Lewis, can you recap an article that you submitted? I was reading it earlier this morning. I believe that was 2012. To the sitezed website. Can you kind of recap what that was about and for us?
Well, sitezed, just to remind everybody out there, was the precursor to the hammer factor. It was that was the alpha phase of hammer. And in fact, Adam Herzog's still out there running it. It was our shot at a long format blog type, surfer's journal, if you will, for paddling. And Lewis wrote probably the most popular piece on that. It was called Style. And it probably, I don't know, at last counting, it was 20 or 3,000 people had read it. And we got a lot of email over that.
Several hundred comments on the website.
Yeah. Lewis, what was the gist of that piece? Do you recall?
Yeah, I read it again this morning, actually, in preparation, which I rarely do for the podcast. What was the gist of that? I think I wanted to write something about style more in the sense of like surfing and like what's good style and just like how you look when you paddle. And I think you and Mitty both told me that was stupid. Mitty Tillman, who was editing sitezed at the time, and you kind of got me on this idea about writing about like carnage basically, and people who were paddling over their heads all the time.
Yeah.
And I wrote this thing. I don't know, like when I look back on it, sometimes I feel like it was just like I wrote it a little bit too cute and like a little bit too focused on like what I was on the sort of writing form of it and not so much on the ideas. But I don't know, I think it holds up pretty well.
So, I mean, I think the point is that if I could be so bold, what we were talking about, the way this thing got started is we were talking about in surfing. You know, if you go out to a big break in surfing, let's say if you go out to the North Shore, you know what I mean? And there's certainly a pecking order out there, you know, and there's a lot of respect built into that system, and it's pretty aggro. You know, if you go strolling out there, and if you don't know the right people, and certainly if you're out of control, you know, at the very least, they're going to usher you out of that break right away. And if push comes to shove, they're going to beat you to get you out of that wave. The idea is ostensibly that if you don't know what you're doing, you're not familiar with that environment, you're going to get hurt, or you're going to hurt somebody else, and they don't want you around. But there's definitely not that same ethic in paddling, for better or for worse. You know, I mean, there's a lot of bad things about getting your tires slashed at a local break in surfing. But at the same time, how many times have we gone to a put-in and there would be 3 or 4 people who just tag along who have no business being out there, and everyone's like, yeah, come along, and you're kind of a jerk if you don't accommodate them somehow, you know? And it was a real difference there, you know. And then I think we were also talking about a lot of these, you know, paddling videos where people, as I was mentioning earlier, running rapids and really beatering down these rapids, and everyone's cheering them on, and they're really psyched about doing it. And Lewis's article was sort of addressing that there's style and your skills should be a more important part of paddling.
Yeah, so like it was cool that got so much attention, and people, intermediate paddlers, told me that they really appreciated it, and I was kind of like surprised to hear that, because I thought that in a way I was kind of being a dick about it. And I think what I heard from people that that surprised me and I really appreciated was that people felt like they were sort of relieved in a way to hear that you could become really good at kayaking without having to like lose your teeth taking a header off gorilla, you know, that it was possible to, you know, like Rush, like said something that I quoted in that article, that he said that he never swam until he was 20. And that, you know, it's possible to go through this progression that takes you to like a really good place without having to undergo these like horrible traumatic experiences. And I think when you're a beginner starting out, like, you know, you might fall into a group of 3 or 4 people, and, you know, invariably in that group, there's going to be somebody who just like wants to send it really hard right away. And there's probably other people in that group who are feeling like a little more tentative and kind of want to like take the time and take it chiller. And I think it was like reassuring for those people to hear that taking your time and being chill about it didn't mean that you were never going to be good at kayaking.
So, I mean, should paddling culture embrace that to a point where, like, Grace, like on the green, should there be like that should be a locals river, and if you're not ready, you don't know the right people, you're not welcome out there, and you sort of keep the river safe that way.
You do keep the river safe, and there's definitely something to be said for that. I think what the green has going for it, and I think a lot of rivers, is that it's a natural litmus test. So you can only play that game for so long. You know, I think...
yeah, but you guys get a tremendous amount of people showing up on the river who want that notch on their belt, whether they're ready or not.
Yeah,
right?
Yep, and it's true, and they do come, and the green is friendly enough that it'll give you some stitches, but it won't necessarily hold you underwater, if that makes any sense. Right. I don't know. It's tricky. You know, I don't think I'm to the point where I'm ready to start calling people out who aren't any good on the river. I don't know. It's a tricky one. You know, I try to be more concerned. For me personally, I try to be more concerned directly with who I'm with in my group and not try and get into everybody else's business. But it's easy for me because the people that I paddle with 99% of the time are every bit, if not better than I am. So it's kind of tricky for me there.
Did you guys see that video that Andy Ole posted of him chasing a swimmer on the wind out here at high water?
Yeah,
2 weeks ago?
I saw that.
That was intense.
If anything, that video does no justice to how dangerous that was. Like that, that river at that level, GoPro always just kind of flattens out big water. And at that level, that's approaching like Stikine with no pools kind of territory. And, we always assume kind of that if you swam at that level, you're probably going to die. And, what I wasn't there and I don't know the guy who swam, but, the story I got from the folks who were there was that everybody kind of knew at the put in that they should have said something to this guy. And he was somebody who, someone else from out of town who was a good paddler had brought. And everybody was sort of like, I don't want to be a dick and say something about this. And in retrospect, everybody's like, I should have been a dick and said something about this. And that was like
super relevant.
The second high water swim we'd had on the wind this year that was really kind of a close call. And it's like, it's so uncomfortable to have that conversation with people. But
you guys are getting the crowds. Like out where I am now, like in the Mid-Atlantic, we're in a time warp where there's no one out here boating. Like I did the upper yacht at 3 feet with not a single person on the river, right? But where you guys live, it's getting crowded, and that's what triggered this in surfing. I think is obviously, like I said, ostensibly it's a safety thing, but the thing of it is I think what really matters is people just don't want a bunch of kooks at their break, And you guys are getting to that point if you're not there already.
Oh yeah, and I mean
and where you are, Gelman, unlike the Green, there are repercussions for this for sure. And even here on the Blackwater, the Blackwater is kind of the local guide run around here, like in the sense that not the guide run, that's not what I mean to say, but it's like when you're a river guide around here, that it's a rush to who can do that first. But that river was killing a person a year for a good 3 years, But anyway, you guys live in a place where this is coming to a head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have it for sure. It's like, the Little Way is definitely getting to be one of those notch on the belt kind of runs. And there's so much media out there and everybody wants to go on the Little Way. And, right now, this spring, especially, the water's super high. Like I saw somebody posting on the PDX Kayaker Facebook page asking for somebody to take them down the Little Way this week. And you're just like, dude, it's like 4-7. And if you're posting on the internet asking for somebody to take you down the river, like, not even close, not even close.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
I feel like
it's, it's like just so easy to underestimate that stuff, and then it's hard. Like it's hard to be, it's hard to be a dick about it, and sometimes you have to be.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, I just say I feel like things have changed quite a bit since I wrote that article, and I think that was right around the time that the term beatering came into common usage. And, it's like it's a little bit. It wouldn't quite be the point if that's the result of that is everybody just calling everybody who's worse at kayaking than them a beater. But to me, in my eyes, what makes there's a difference between being a beater and being a learner. And like, there's nothing wrong with being a learner. There's nothing wrong with going out and sucking on class 3. That's fine.
Well, a beater's a kook, right?
You're a beater once you're paddling over your head.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with swimming in class 2-3 when you're learning. Like that's how you learn.
Right.
But once you're running a little way, you shouldn't be swimming.
Right. That's the kooks. The kooks out in the lineup. They don't know what they're doing. They're they're in the way. Their head. They're dropping in on people. That's the kook.
I will say I was up at the Nolichucky, like I was saying in that intro piece, and I saw so many rafts. These were guides. These were raft guides, and it was like their first trip of the year, and they were all just on like recreational trips. They weren't like actually guiding. But I probably saw 25 raft guides swimming. None of them were helping each other out. They were all like on their own little train. It was definitely I rescued like 5 or 6 people, and finally I just turned my back and went downriver. So even though I say I'm not a part of it or whatever, I guess sort of I was. I don't know. It's That's a tricky one. I think people need to make sure they're having fun and not drowning out there. I guess I don't know.
Well, that's a strong statement there, John. That's like the governor is like, we're gonna pass anti-child molestation legislation. I think that's something we can all get behind. It's a bipartisan issue.
Okay, moving on. Whitewater Sup continues its zombie-like refusal to die with the most.
I'm not touching this.
Recent iteration of.
You're not touching it. Well, you put this in the show notes, and you're responsible for bringing this up all the time.
Well, Grace sent along the Nolichucky, which was chock full of whitewater SUP paddlers.
Here's what I have to say about this.
Thank you.
But let's just stop talking about it.
About Whitewater Sup?
2/3 of us are in agreement that it's stupid.
Oh my god!
Like we don't spend every show ripping on people who like go to Zumba or like into like Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Easy.
It's just. Well, you're going to alienate your potential customers, all of whom probably have more money than kayakers do. Let's just stop talking about it. I don't even
SUP paddlers aren't buying anything from me. They're all sponsored.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys done it?
Why?
Oh my god! All right, well.
Yeah, I did. I did it on the what's the river in Buena Vista? Come on.
The Arkansas?
Yeah, the Arkansas. Thank you. Yeah, I did it on the Arkansas. I felt like a newborn deer. I mean, just standing on this thing, I'm wobbling around. I'm like, and then you can go out and surf and you carve back and forth. Like, all right, okay. All right. That's it. I okay. Thank you.
There were about 5 times as many sup racers as there were kayak racers.
I don't care. Like, fine.
Anyway, it was sick. If you guys were there, you would have been
45,000 people at like every professional baseball game in the country yesterday. Like, we don't talk about that either. Like, let everybody do their thing, man.
All right. Moving on. Appreciate the candid opinions there, guys. Moving on, Smalls to the Walls race.
I don't know what to make of this.
Did you guys see? It's Andrew Cooper. He's putting on this race up there, Smalls to the Walls race.
Yeah.
It's up in Maine.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a scene there. You saw those guys on the video. What'd you think?
I thought that there is clearly we have supply chain issues for our company in Maine. That was my first takeaway.
Because there was no IR gear out there.
I think I saw one IR skirt in the entire video. That hurt.
Who's your dealer up there?
I don't even think we have any, to be honest. That could be the problem. Maine's a strange place. I don't think I'm surprising or offending anybody in saying that.
Did you watch it, Lewis?
No, I missed it. Sorry.
Smalls to the Walls race. Anyway, it's a cool race. I think it's got potential. The guys, it's got some 20-foot waterfalls kind of on top of each other, and it looks like a pretty good short, but looks like a pretty good course. I think
it looks like a race that would have been held like in 1983 in Corsica. But there should be like a more festive. Like if it was in Corsica, you'd have like guys like an inflatable alligators and like in speedos, and there'd be 100 people and lining the banks. It'd be a little more festive. There'd be topolinos, lots of topolinos.
That's actually a really good kind of description.
It was a head scratcher.
But,
it does not look like something you see stateside. Sure.
But I thought it was really cool. There's a scene up there. I just love the Class 5 racing. You just got done racing on Canyon Creek. Smalls to the Walls is happening next weekend. West Virginia. And I think that there's going to be... What race do you guys have in West Virginia? The Yacht. You got the Yacht? No, that's in Pennsylvania.
Upper Yacht. I mean, we have the Cheat Canyon race, but that's not really I wouldn't call that an extreme race.
Somebody needs to get together a race on the Blackwater.
We did a Blackwater race one year. It's hard to
One year we had it, and I can't remember who organized it, but it was the most informal possible race, which was at any point during the weekend, show up and time yourself.
That's
Yeah.
a
It
good
was
start.
it was cool because it was sort of like a contest to see who wanted to run the Blackwater the highest. And me and Oliver Grossman did the team run. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was proud of that guy.
Class 5 racing. It's blowing
Last I heard
up.
was
It's cool to see.
like Uzbekistan or something.
Yeah.
Oliver Grossman is the best kayaker in West Virginia, possibly the world, who no one's ever heard of.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. His dad was a Pittsburgh Steeler, a Super Bowl ring wearer, owner.
I don't
What's
care.
his name? Randy Grossman.
I don't care about that.
Anyway, all right.
Good, man.
Oliver Grossman, wherever you are, you
Yeah.
are recognized by a few core people.
Our sport needs more underground legends like Oliver Grossman.
Man, they're out there. We should commit to digging up a legend and interviewing them 1 month, one show a month.
Yeah, we'd be like deep dark in West Virginia in some class 5 with like a little crew of people, snow, crappy weather, and Oliver just come drifting by himself. You'd be like, hey, man, how's it going? Yeah. I'd be like, where did you come from? Hey, all right, I'll see ya. Just be gone.
First day of Douglas Falls, maybe?
No, that was
Second?
huh?
One of the first, for sure. Second?
One of the first, yeah. Shoot, I used to know this.
Zone Dog, possibly?
I don't know. I shouldn't say. I can't think off the top of my head. I don't want to call that one incorrectly.
It is important to get these things right.
I know. It might have been Steve Fisher.
No.
No?
Douglas Falls?
There's a video of Steve Fisher and
Jimmy Blakeney?
Jimmy Blakeney running it.
Was that the first ascent?
I don't think. No, that can't be right. Never mind.
I think it was either Bobby Miller or Oliver Grossman.
Oliver Grossman might be right. He'd be a good candidate for that for sure. And the thing is, the fact that we don't know even says a lot about Grossman.
Yeah.
That's a McEwen-esque type. McEwen said he ran the Big Sandy top to bottom in the mid 70s and didn't portage anything. But at the same time, he never claimed to run Big Splat first. So, go figure.
Jesus. Sorry, viewers, for that little.
We digress.
A deep track.
Okay, let's move on to a little Facebook post. Well, you put this in there sort of at the last minute. This was from Noria Newman. It was a post about that Chris Korbulic, I believe, put out there about taking women on an expedition. Could you bring that up and kind of share that with us real quick? Tell me what it was about.
Chris Korbulic is running a trip down in Colombia. Geltman, do you know about this?
Yeah, it's very little. I know Annie Oil's down there with them.
Yeah, but they're coming back in a couple weeks. We can probably get Chris on the show to talk about it. But right before they put on, he had a crew of people. I don't know how many people were in his crew. Do you know this group?
I don't know.
And who's the female paddler?
Jesse Rice, I think.
So he wrote on his Facebook page, and hold on, bear with me here.
It was interesting. It talked about should we put on with the dynamics of the group, and then it talked about should we do this with a girl, and
Yep.
I had not seen it till you brought it up, but I guess
The line
Noria
was something like, "Is it responsible?"
Here it is. Here's what he writes: they're getting ready to put on, and so he's sort of doing a dramatic, does this make are we out of our minds post? Is this madness? Are we ready? Will rough group dynamics smooth out under the rigors of an expedition into the unknown? Will we meet rebel groups? Is bringing a female into 30 days of such unknowns responsible, etc., etc.? Of course, the thing that got all the attention was the last part where he says, "Is bringing a female into 30 days of such unknowns responsible?"
And so Noria shared this post and said, basically made a response to girls can kind of handle their own. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the long and short of it.
Okay.
I think Chris was probably trying to be chivalrous here in some regards, but I think the core of the question is, should, I mean, going a river trip has risks for everybody. Why should we single out risks for women, and why are women not able to process these risks on their own?
Well, let me take
And why are they not in charge of that?
Let me kind of be the devil's advocate on this, and this is just from experience. So I was on an expedition in Russia with Nikki Kelly, and we were on like day 8 of this trip, and we were out of the canyons, but we had like 200 kilometers or something of fast braided water that we had to paddle, and we were camping on this little island, and out of nowhere come these Russian moose hunters on this kind of aluminum boat, and they pull up to our spot. Next thing you know, they get right out. We've got our camp set up, so this was obviously like kind of a spot that stayed dry most of the time and whatnot. And these guys come in, speak Russian. We have one guy with us who was fluent. You know, he was kind of our translator, and he was a kayaker, Viktor Chupakov. And next thing you know, these guys are digging vodka up out of the sand. They were digging like fat from things that they had killed up out of the sand, and that's how they stored it, was in the sand. And next thing you know, they're getting pretty drunk, and Tanya Fox was there too. It was Nikki and Tanya. And next thing you know, they're getting really drunk and start being like super aggressive with the ladies, like filling them up, sitting around them, trying to put their arms on them and whatnot. And anyway, the situation, you know, these are guys with big rifle guns and whatever, and it got to where the girls were kind of running away from them in a way. And so it added a dynamic. Not that those girls couldn't handle themselves at all in the whitewater or in the boats or decision making or whatever, but there was this dynamic that created a sense of responsibility, or how are you going to protect this part of your group. And I don't know which side of that I'm playing on, but it was a real thing that happened on a trip. So
I think that any trip has risks. I mean, that's one of 1,000 risks you guys could have exposed yourself to, from anywhere from, you know, obviously the whitewater to someone breaking their leg on a portage to that. I mean, that's just part of the basket of risks you're all facing. I don't think, I mean, it's obviously an issue unique to women, but it should be looked at as one of the risks, you know, not as a reason to isolate out a group of the paddling team. Lewis is giving me a very skeptical look.
No, I'm not. I totally agree. I mean, my reaction to that was a stupid thing to say, that what Korbulic wrote. And, you know, I know Chris a little bit, and he seems like a good dude. And I was surprised that he said something like that, because it just seemed like tactless and stupid.
Yeah, I was trying to.
But I mean, Chris is a good guy. And
I was trying to play I'm trying to figure out why he would write that, and
yeah.
So that's the only dynamic I've ever seen with that. You could say, okay, well, we could avoid that dynamic if we didn't have a girl on the trip.
Right. When he gets back, there's going to be like protesters wearing pussy hats at the airport waiting for him. So he better get ready.
Good, dude. I'm coming. Oh, man. That was a good one. All right. What else do I have here in my viewer? In my well, so I wish I could read word for word some of your show notes from time to time.
It's me in full dick mode, which I'm trying to restrain myself. I'm trying to reduce my.
You guys want to hear my review of the Party Braap and the Antix?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I took both of them out to the ledges. I paddle the Party Braap all the time. Disclaimer, I own one, and it's an awesome boat, and I love it. But I was out with Steve Fisher, who's actually the neighbor down the road here, and we were out at the ledges. This was before I broke my ribs.
It's quite a team. You keep saying you broke your ribs. How'd you break your ribs?
I crashed mountain biking. I went over the handlebars, landed on a log, took it on the left side, broke 2 ribs. One of them's broken 2 places. But we digress. So anyway, I took both the boats out, and this is the way. They were both fun. You could fit in them, no problem. Wear your shoes. A lot of similar things. But this is what's funny about these two boats, and is you can tell one of them was built with a play boating background, and you can tell the other one was built with a river running background. So one of them would side surf and whatever, and the other one wasn't so good at side surfing, but was a lot faster and sportier, and it was just super interesting. They were both cool and both fun. And
can you initiate could you splat a rock in flat water basically in the Antix?
Yeah, you pretty much could. Yeah.
See, that to me, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah. It probably went up a little easier. It wasn't as stable on its stern, but it kind of had like a cool little bob going to it, whereas the Braap is kind of more just fluid when it goes up and down. They were, it was interesting. It's cool that Axiom, or the Dagger with the Axiom, Liquid Logic with the Braap, and Jackson with the Antix are all kind of making these retro boats. It's pretty cool.
I paddled the Braap yesterday on the upper at, I think it was like 3 feet, but no problem. Easily would have put another 6 to 8 inches of water in there, that same boat, no problem.
Yeah, that's killer to run the river.
Man, I remember one time, John, asking you if you wanted to come run the upper yacht with me because I was out there, and you told me that you would rather trim your toenails than run the upper yacht.
Oh, come on now.
Literally, that is almost verbatim.
Well, there was a period of time, we were running that like every day. You know what I mean? And someone called me yesterday, like, it's going to be like 3.5 feet. I'm like, okay, 3.5 feet, I'm in. And we got there. It wasn't quite that high, unfortunately.
That's hilarious. We got to start documenting.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up too. That's going to be great. Thank you.
That's going to be the first Hammer Factor T-shirt. Oh man, that's a good one. All right, moving on to rants and raves, everybody's favorite part of the show. Did anybody study up on rants and raves?
I have one.
Let's hear it. What you got?
Okay, the Odachi is, I'm not going to say it's as good as Dave Fuseli makes it out to be, because according to Dave, that paddle has brought him to the best paddling he's ever done in his life.
I'd agree with that.
I'd say it's a damn good whitewater paddle. I would say it is a damn fine whitewater paddle.
So how long
it almost feels as good as the Galasport Mannix, almost.
Yeah, but it won't break. I mean, that's to me, that's one of the key components.
How long did it take you to get used to the blade offset weld?
I always get the same 45.
No. Like the offset of the blade off the shaft. They kind of.
Oh, none, 0.
Yeah.
Seamless. Yeah. I've never had a problem with that. I could pick up anything that's usually fine in a second.
Lewis, rant or rave?
I've kind of a meta rant in that we've already covered, but it's talking about SUP. I'm just done with it. I don't want to talk about SUP anymore. I would like to request that we remove the supper from the Hammer Factor logo. Maybe replace it with like some lawn dart or something like that.
Dude, we're gonna do mandatory SUP from now on. I'm gonna do show openings that talk about whitewater SUP.
We'll call it the SUP corner with John Grace.
You can record that segment in advance and just add it on this Nintendo.
I think in the LVM, back in the LVM days, we did 30 seconds of play boating, right?
Yeah.
It'd just be like you have like a clock ticking on the screen, and then when 30 seconds is up, it's done. I thought that was a good way to handle that.
So I'm gonna rave. About spring.
It's been spring there since last spring, for the record.
Pretty much. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
But the leaves are out now, and so I can just walk right behind my house and take a piss, and nobody can see me.
All right.
It's the little thing.
Not where I was expecting you to go with that. But,
that's well-crafted rave there.
No, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening to The Hammer Factor. Remember to subscribe. We always appreciate your viewer mail, and we will see you next week.